Good evening, YouTube. I wanted to kind of tackle a big project tonight and looking over some of the numbers and things that I have with my business this afternoon. And one of the biggest questions that you see on the internet or you hear people talking about face to face is, how do you price your drone jobs? How do you price that? How do you come up with that? Is it by the hour? Is it by the day? Is it by the project? How do you come up with that number? There's a little bit more to it than just kind of throwing out numbers, and I know that different economies pay different amounts. It depends on where you live, the economy in that location. It depends on the necessity or the amount of pilots, Part 107 pilots that are in that area. So there's several different factors, but there's a few things that I wanted to put together this evening for you and just share it with you from my personal experience over the past two and a half years. Just to kind of give you some insight of where I'm coming from and kind of what I'm beginning to do, and I'll explain to you here a little bit further in just a few minutes. Thank you for tuning back in with Jaybird Aerials. Appreciate your consistency and staying with me. And I'll say subscribe. If you haven't already, subscribe. Share a channel with a friend. We're really trying to promote our business and promote some good common sense practices. And I just want to share some things with you as we go through the process. And today, one of the things that I have been looking at is my production work or my jobs versus my expense list. I guess you would say what is coming in versus what is going out. And in trying to really learn how to price jobs fairly and effectively, something where there are a lot of extras that go into this type of work. You may or may not realize it, but there's a lot more to it than just the photography aspect. There's a lot more to it than just purchasing a drone, doing your Part 107, and just starting to take pictures and photographs and make videos. There's so much more to it if you're really wanting to create a full-time business or a standalone business out of aerial photography. To have it set up as a part-time business, depending on your location, again, probably may not be too difficult. It just depends on everyone's financial obligations or what they may be able to spend. But although drones are not, especially with the DJI, I'll use that as an example. That's what I use. They are not cheap by any means, but they are not as expensive as they used to be. The prices have come down some, and you can actually get some very, very good photography out of a device that's not too expensive. So when you look at what you can make versus what you've put into it, you'll have to balance that out yourself and to decide if that's going to be worth it to you. And again, each economy is going to be different. If there are several different businesses or pilots in your area, and I know this is a growing industry, if there are several, it might be different for you. I live in a rural place in North Carolina, and our industry is not so overridden here locally as it may be in some other places. But that being said, I know that in larger cities, even in North Carolina, I'm a member of several different drone business websites, and so I see what's coming through, and a lot of times it's jobs that are being requested in larger cities or larger areas. So it just kind of depends. So just to stay on topic, how do I price, or how do you price jobs? And so I was actually looking at my investments or the actual work that's coming in. Been very blessed this year, as I mentioned before, to be just a little over half of the year into it this year for 2019. And I've had 16 different customers, or 16 different jobs, let's put it that way. Some are repeat customers, and then three of those are contracts, so they're extended. So I go to those locations at least twice a week, and maybe even more than that. So it's just a little bit different. And I've mentioned briefly before how much I appreciate those extended contracts, and that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us going when maybe in the winter, when things slow down, where people aren't doing so much or so many projects of their own, just independent projects, whereas construction work continues. So the production continues and they want progress reporting throughout. So that makes a big difference. But what you really have to look at, what is coming in is important, but also what is going out. What have you invested back into your business? And when you look at what you are investing continually, I want to go over these expenses with you just to kind of let you know what I'm talking about. You have to weigh those factors in. When you give people prices, if you want to stay in business, you have to be able to pay for your needs first and then be able to see what you have left over. Now, you could go extravagant, or you could be moderate, or you just kind of have to weigh what you need and what you don't need when you look into this type of business. So I just want to go over a few things with you as far as what I call my expense list, what I've been looking at this afternoon, the last hour or so, just kind of going over this to prepare for this video. The first and foremost thing at the top of my list is drone insurance, and I go through Travers and Associates aviation insurance, and I've been with them for right at 2 years now. That's the company that I started with, and I have to say I'm happy with the coverage that I have. It's $1 million liability. It does cover the hull as well, so I'm content with what I have there. That is by far the largest expenditure that I have each year, and I pay an annual fee. When I first started out, I just had one drone on my policy, and it was right around $700 a year for that one drone. Now that I've upped it to 2 drones, it's basically doubled, but if you have more than one, sometimes insurance companies will give you a little bit of a break. So I am paying actually $1,300 annually to keep both of my drones covered, and that's full coverage, hull coverage, and liability up to $1 million. And so I feel that's a good amount. Some projects may require more, and if I need to up that is something that I could definitely do as well. Moving on after that, we're basically really talking about those things that are what I consider to be very important or a necessity to having a business. Number 2, now this is just every 2 years, and this is not an expensive expenditure, but it's something that's 100% necessary. You have to have it, and that is, of course, your Part 107 exam. It's $150 every 2 years, so that's not too much to factor in, but that is something that you do have to consider, and you do have to add into it. Advertising. I find that it works best to advertise. Several of my customers are not from here locally. They are from out of town and usually out of state. I'm in North Carolina again. I get several calls from Florida, different locations in Florida, to take care of businesses that they have up here. It might be the actual owner of the business. It might be one who oversees the business for the owner. And so they'll reach out and ask that some promotional work be done, whether it's for an Airbnb or, again, the work that we've done for Camp Big. The actual folks are from Florida, but the camp is here locally, so that's kind of what ties us in together. So how do people find Jaybird aerials? How are people going to find your business if you're not on Google, or if you do not have a website? And we'll talk about websites here in just a minute. What I've chosen to do is pay a monthly fee. I've got an ad that's listed. It's Jaybird Aerial Photography on Google, and you go in. I've got my own Google listing there. Gives some brief information about our business, our insurance, our coverage, and what we do and what we offer. And that is per click. So what I've found, it comes out to be close to $75 to $100 a month that costs. So an yearly, you're looking at about a $1,200 yearly fee for that, or expenditure for that. But what I have found is those companies that have called me, or those companies that have, it has been worth it. Just the 2 or 3 calls have more than paid for that. And they have expressed to me, yes, I found you on Google, so I know where that came from, where that call came from. So advertising is something to consider. One of the things that I used to do, or was really or how I started out at first was through Facebook, Facebook ads. I think most of the time it was people that have already seen that I was friends with or seen our business here locally. Didn't garner a lot of information or folks saying, hey, I found you on Facebook. I didn't see a lot of that. Although I do have a Facebook page just dedicated to Jaybird, Jaybird Aerial Photography, again, LLC, if you want to check that out. But that's a way for me to keep in touch with the folks that here locally or out of town that just kind of want to check in and see what I'm doing from day to day. So that's another way to keep up with it. But I found Google Ads, being on Google is probably one of the best ways to stay relevant in the area. Also, your LLC. That's one of the things that I thought was very important to do right out of the gate, and I did that right off the bat. And I don't think I've really talked about this too much, but I'll go ahead and tell you how Jaybird came to be Jaybird. Growing up, again, my name's Jason, and growing up, my mom, she just called me Jaybird all the time. Hey, Jaybird. And so later on, a couple of years ago, when we started getting serious about logos, branding, and our business, that's exactly what came to my mind. Jaybird Aerials, Jaybird. How fitting that it would be for that. So that's where our name came from, and we wanted to make sure that name was protected and covered. So we filed the paperwork, went through the LLC process. Now that's $202 yearly here in North Carolina. So every April, every spring, that comes due. So that's an annual fee. Some of these fees are monthly, some of these fees are annual. So it's something to consider. If you're going to be a legitimate business, have your name, have it protected by LLC. That's a $202 annual to keep up with that there. Now, this is kind of something that I thought was very interesting. When I first started, I was solely using the Adobe Creative Cloud, and I think Adobe is the suite to use. The Creative Cloud suite is an excellent way to go. But later on, I found that I was more comfortable with using Final Cut Pro X. After getting a MacBook, my first Mac, getting more comfortable with it, to me it was much easier to produce the videos through that. A little bit simpler. Now, again, nothing against Premiere. I think it's wonderful. But for me, it was just made more sense. And plus, it was a one-time fee. You pay for Final Cut Pro X. You have the money today. You pay for it, and there's no reoccurring fee. So that appealed to me. But I was paying a monthly fee to keep the Adobe suite as well, the Creative Cloud suite. The one thing that I don't have from Final Cut Pro is Lightroom. And of course, being a photographer, needing to be able to do those edits, I had to have that. So I actually called Adobe today and was kind of seeing what my options were. And believe it or not, they were awesome to work with, which again, I've never had any issues with them. But Adobe was able to take me from a $30 a month expenditure down to a $10 a month expenditure to give me the Lightroom access that I needed, along with Photoshop. So I was very excited about that. That's saving me about $22 a month right there. So everything adds up. When you're a small business, everything adds up. And as one of my good friends, I've mentioned him before from Top Notch Lawn Care, I watched his video yesterday, Brian Shan. He mentioned you need to know, a small business owner needs to know where their money is going. And so that's kind of what caused me to look at this a little bit closer. So that's some savings there. Also, a few more savings annually. I have a Wix website, and annually that was going to be $108 to keep up with it. I got an email today as it was almost time for me to renew, and if I chose to purchase a 2-year subscription, I could save some money. So ended up saving me about $36 to go ahead and pay for 2 years. Now, you need the money up front to do that. I understand that. I'm not paying monthly. But thankfully, with business being as good as it's been this year, I was able to do that. Now I don't have to worry about that for 2 years. Also puts me on my every 2 year, since I just renewed my Part 107 certification. So it's 2 more years for that. What I'm finding in looking at these bills today, many have already been paid for the year, but those that haven't, paying it now has been kind of allowed me to know when it's going to be coming back up, so I don't have surprise expenditures. having these things written down is a great value to you. Knowing what month or what time your next bill is coming up and allowing you to prepare for that, especially the big bills like insurance, is a very valuable thing to do. And so it causes you to be a better steward with your money. Not thinking, well, I've got this in here, it's a part-time job, I've got the money here, so I'm just going to use this for something that I want versus needing. If you're transitioning from a part-time to a full-time job, as much money as you can put back and save and not spend is important. Because transitioning into that full-time job, you're going to be using that money as income versus disposable income, and that's two very different things. So it's something to think about there. So I was thankful for that $36 savings over the next 2 years. So every little bit counts. And also with HostGator, that's where my website is hosted through. So it's in cooperation with HostGator and Wix. And again, that was a very small price. It was $31 annually for HostGator, so we went ahead and paid for that as well. One more thing that I wanted to point out to you and mention to you, and again, we're talking about those things that I deem or I feel, and everybody has their opinion, as being necessary. Having your social media, your online presence, that's pretty much what we've just discussed, along with your editing tools. Also, for aerial business, when you're using drones, what you need to look at is your how are you logging or keeping up with your log books. Now, I have a manual logbook that you can write each part of your flight down that you need to, the condition of your batteries, date, time, weather, wind, gusts, several of those things that you need to mention on by way of FAA standard or regulation. What I have found to work very well for me, and it does come at a cost, is AirData. AirData is an online system service that connects to the drone. So every time I fly, it connects to the drone through the DJI Go app, and it logs everything. The photographs that you capture, videos that you capture, your elevation, your speed, the wind gust, time of day, location, coordinates. It does all of those things for you automatically, and I was very, very impressed when I found that. Now, it's $165 a year to have that, so that's something that you need to consider or think about as well. But the convenience of that program was well worth it for me. So it's $165 a year. That comes out to right around $14 a month. So that's something to think about there. As we move on down, if you have any loans for your business, if you don't fully own your equipment, the business needs to pay for itself. Instead of using outside funds to pay for those expenditures, the business should be able to consume those or take care of those. Then also you should be able to have a profit on the outside of that. So whatever loans that you may have for your equipment, that's something to take into consideration as well. Okay, moving on to the next thing, we're coming down to the bottom of the list. What I like to do as far as transferring media to the customer that I have found to work very well and do with almost all of my customers. I like to use Dropbox. That's been a very, very efficient, a very quality saving way to share information, whether it be a completed project or if the client just wanted some raw photographs or unedited video clips that they're going to make their own video out of. That's been an excellent way for me to share that. Now Dropbox, the yearly subscription that I have it's $120 a year, so you're looking at about $10 a month for that. Another idea, something that you can think about or use, and I do on occasion, is the Google Drive. So depending on who your client is and what they're more comfortable with, that might be the option that they prefer as well. So I use that as well, but I don't pay for that. I don't pay extra for it, but that is something to really consider. And just as we come down to the bottom of the list, now this is something I didn't acquire or take on till just this year, and you may or may not find it necessary, but for me, with more productions, with more serious clients coming on, I found it necessary for me, and that is music. the music that you set your videos to, that is so crucial. It's so important. I've spent countless countless time, I won't say hours, but countless time going through the YouTube Creator Studio to try to find music that hasn't been overplayed. Usually the good stuff is overplayed a lot, and when you hear it's like, oh, that's YouTube. You could walk by and hear the music and say, hey, that's a YouTube song. So some of those are really good, and sometimes they get played a lot, but I really look through some of the different royalty-free music that they have, and royalty-free. And so what I found for me to be the best for my situation, because they offered the most music, or offered the most without being credited. You didn't have to worry about it so much. And I went with Artlist, and so far I find their music to be great. They have a little bit of everything. It takes a little time to find what you're looking for, but I love having that. The songs that you're hearing on my channel now versus what you would have seen last year, that's coming from Artlist, and I'm very pleased with that. Now, that's $200 a year to look at, so that's about $16 a month. So when you add these things together, when they come up, you're talking, a few $100s. So if you're going to be able to make a profit, you have to consider, what I have some bills that I have to pay. I have investments that I'm paying to make this quality production, not just trying to throw something together to give the client something just to make a quick buck. One of the biggest compliments I've received is a call from a client saying, I need you to do this. You know what I like. You do what I ask you to do. And so repeat business is key, especially in this location. I'm sure it's the same way in your location as well. So quality work, producing quality work, is what you really have to look at. It's not always about how cheap that you can produce the work. I believe in doing a fair price without neglecting the expenditures of what I have to pay for. That's a balance that each person will have to come up with. I don't believe in just throwing out numbers to people just to see what they'll bite on. I don't do that. The way I have learned, in some cases I've had to increase a certain selection of what the offering is. In other cases, I've actually had to decrease, because I have found a few clients that just need 3 or 4 pictures, and to charge them a full price for photographing, it would not be fair. So what I've tried to do is create a minimal list down at the bottom for the smallest service, then all the way up to the top. One of the biggest jobs I've worked is photographing and videoing the inside water features and the outside overview of showing some of the views, the aerial views. And it was 1,800 acres, and that was last year, and that was earlier on when I started doing this. So I had to really I had to broaden my pay scale for what just maybe a realtor might need for a small project, or what a construction job or a larger business might need for an 1,800 acre project. So you have to learn to be flexible. You have to learn what your limitations are, and you have to learn what you can offer in reality. I do believe promise less, deliver more, but really what I try to do is learn and grow from each project, showcase my projects on my website and social media so people can see what I'm producing. That's one of the first things I do when I have a client, when they're asking of me what can I do, or what their vision, if they're sharing with me what their vision is. I refer them to my website so they can see what I'm doing, what I'm producing. And if there's something there that they like, or if they want to tweak that a little bit, then by all means they can do so. We learn, we grow together, and we make their vision come to be. It's what they want. So tonight, I know this was probably a little bit longer than some of the other videos. I'm trying to keep them condensed and shorter, but that's something you have to weigh. The business that's coming in, what you're charging for that business, and then what your expenditures are. And you've kind of got to weigh all of those things out and see what your profit is at the end. So just some things to think about. Just wanted to throw those things out to you. Please comment down below If you have any advice, if you have any questions, I'm all about discussion, so please hit me up below. Subscribe to the channel. We'll learn and we'll grow and we'll move forward together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some feedback from you all. See or hear what your thoughts are, and we'll move forward together and we'll see where things go. Again, this drone industry here is still a very new. I know drones have been around for a long time, but being in the public sector where we're at now, it's still very new, and we're ever learning and ever growing as technology advances. So stay tuned, and we'll learn and we'll grow together. Talk to you later.